And 1 second. Okay, there we go. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I'm a coach who helps people hire me. Let's try that again. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. People hire me for no BS job search coaching and career advice globally because I make so many people much more effective in their job search and much, much more. So I just had a little bit of a technical issue with launching the show, so I apologize. Tuesdays at noon Eastern, except next week. I'll explain why in a minute. Tuesdays at noon Eastern, I take about a half hour, a little bit more of time answering questions from people about their job search because I believe that most people are amateurs. They make pivotal mistakes that prove costly throughout their search. And because of my background in recruiting, which I did for many years before becoming a coach, and the YouTuber and a podcaster and much, much more, I have a unique perspective on how to help people land their next role. It's one of the reasons I created JobSearch.Community, where I've got video courses, books, and guides to help people with their search. And depending upon the tier of service you choose, you have the opportunity to ask me questions, get coaching from me, get advice from me, and much, much more. So I want to encourage you. I've got free information at JobSearch.Community that will help you, but you get me with any of the paid levels of services. Minimally, become an insider at JobSearch.Community, where you can ask me questions through the site, plus get everything from me, all the video courses, books and guides. Go there, take a look at the full list that's there. I'm adding one more this weekend that you'll have access to about career change. But I'll simply say the skills needed to find the job are different from those needed to do a job. And I couldn't do what you do for a living. I spent many years helping people find work, listening to what institutions look for when they evaluate and assess people and ultimately hire. I know the reality of it, and it's one of the reasons I get revolted when I see terms like dream job. Ooh, it to me signals an amateur who doesn't know what they're talking about in job hunting. So I'll just simply say, while I'm here for the next half hour-ish, put your questions into chat so I can answer them live. And I'll also mention to you, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Mention that you watch this so I know I'm helping some folks. Once we're connected, your network is going to be a lot larger than it was otherwise. So again, that's JobSearch.Community, and LinkedIn is linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Now, as I'm recording this, it's October 29th, 2024. We are a week to a presidential election, and I want to be clear, I'm not going to advocate for one candidate or another. I just want to simply say, if you've been running into struggles getting interviews in this economy, you're not alone, because firms do not know how to anticipate what the economy will be like, what the rules of the game are going to be for business until after next week's election. Again, this is not political. If Vice President Harris is chosen, there's going to be one path. If former President Trump is chosen, there's a different path. Firms are sitting and waiting. Thus, I want to encourage all of you. We're also coming up on the easiest time of the year to network. Probably about 2 weeks after the election, I'd encourage you to set up a time to get together with folks, maybe after Thanksgiving, so that in this way, you're in that great time of the year for networking, because in the US at least, and in certain countries, in Europe and elsewhere, we're at a time of year where people are very susceptible to reconnecting. So start lining up your appointments during the Christmas season, the Christmas New Year season, the Hanukkah season, so that in this way you can start having those conversations that may lead to interviews and may lead to you being hired. So again, the election is going to settle some things, and I hope they settle in a good way for you, no matter who is elected. the most important thing is that there's clarity going forward so that business knows what they can do and not do. And for you, you start getting interviews where you have a chance of getting hired. So again, please put your questions about job search into chat so I can answer them live. Now, my first question that was sent to me in advance of the show, and again, if you're watching me on YouTube or LinkedIn or elsewhere, put your question into the chat box so I can respond to it today. Why doesn't HR reply after I complete the job application? Real simple. You're not the only priority that they have. I know for you, it's the A priority. For them, they handle a lot of things concurrently. So let's say you're applying for a job and it's through, obviously through an applicant tracking system, because you're talking about a job application process. So you're applying through an applicant tracking system. And thus, the long and the short of it is multiple things are landing in their lap concurrently, including meeting with managers, interviewing other people, contacting people to interview, et cetera, et cetera. So the result winds up being, you're not the only priority, and your background can be completely unqualified for the role. So why they may not contact you, they're not ready yet, and you may not be qualified. And for them, it's a waste of time to call you and say, hi, we received your application. Your background didn't fit for the role. Goodbye. Even emailing you begins a conversation that may be frustrating for you and a waste of time for them. Another reason is they may not have gotten to it yet. You expect instant response. They're not prepared to give you instant response. They've got other priorities. So those are a few of the reasons. There's a million other ones, including they missed your resume. That's the reality to it. People miss resumes sometimes. So I hope that helps you. And I've got a question from Yard Bank in my chat. If you've been out of work for a while, let's say 10 years plus, taking care of family obligations because you have elderly parents, that's okay, Yard Bank. Yard Bank was telling me they ran out of space to ask the full question. It's okay. And want to get back to work, but your degree field is changing because of technology. Should you go for the old field or start looking for a new one? The answer is an absolute yes. You can do both things concurrently. Now, if your old field is changing, and again, I don't know what the field is, nor is it important that I know, but if your old field is changing and you don't have the desire to keep up with it, that's a key part of it. If you don't have the desire to keep up with it because it's become too hard since you last worked with it in the field, for example, then go for something else. If you want to return to the field and you have the money to learn what's necessary to get back to a role in that field, then do it. Be prepared for interview questions that say, so you've been out for 10 years, or in your resume to pre-explain why you've been out of work for a while. And, it's important that firms know that before they're ever going to consider interviewing you. Because, for example, and again, I don't know your gender, nor is it important that I know your gender. But, there's an expectation that people who might have been out of the labor force for 10 years, they start to think maybe you're raising kids. That's a women-oriented one. A male-oriented one and female one might be, the elderly parent story that you mentioned in your question to me. See, folks, taking care of elderly parents. Bless you for doing that. I mean that. Bless you for doing that. And they need to know that, because to them, they worry about hiring the right person who can solve a problem. And thus, giving them the explanation, left the workforce when my mom and dad, or whichever parent it is, became gravely ill. I became their primary caregiver. The long and the short of it was, it's been very hard, and, they've since passed, and I'm ready to return to work. And to say it in a way when you speak with them that sounds sincere. If they don't believe you, they won't trust you. And then from there, the things that you can do to prepare for the interview that demonstrate a desire to get up to speed without wasting time, money, or resources of theirs to help you do that. They don't want to do that, right? They don't want to spend money hiring someone who they then have to train. They have people in their own department who they can do that with. So the long and the short of it is you've got a choice to make. And I would suggest speaking with people who are doing the kind of work that you did before, to see what you need to get up to speed with. Like, you can contact people you worked with previously, 10 years ago, and say, my story. Took care of mom and dad or whomever it is. And I'm ready to return to work. Tell me about the changes that have taken place from your perspective. Start learning those, and then follow up with, and what do I need to know in order to be qualified for firms to consider me for a role? These kind of informational conversations are going to help you a lot. And thus, I say help you because you start to learn the training that you're going to need to pick up in order to be effective and get that next job. So that's a launch point. Yard Bank includes as well, say, their field is finance. It seems like some positions now focus on technology backgrounds. You're absolutely right. But you need to ask people to get sure of it. So good luck. I would also say I've got a book on Amazon that I'm going to be adding onto the site, onto JobSearch.Community this weekend. I believe it's called 10 Steps to Changing Careers. If you get to the careers change area decision, this becomes a book that can help you with your exploration. Again, 10 Steps to Changing Careers, or look for it under my name, Jeff Altman. And what it will help you with is a process to go through, because they are 10 steps with subcategories that can help you navigate a job change, a career change. So you'd have work to do no matter which option. You can go down different roads concurrently. You don't have to be linear and do one thing. But once you do it, you've got to be focused and prepared for a lot of questions to explain the decisions that you've made, and be prepared to say them in a way where your sincerity oozes through, because when firms hire, they want to trust the person that they're hiring. So good luck. I mean that. Good luck. And Yard Bank comments, thank you for my answer. You're welcome. I received another question in advance, and if anyone else has questions, put it into chat so I can answer it live like I did for Yard Bank. What are some effective strategies for negotiating a higher salary when starting a new job? So I'm going to change the language from starting a new job to negotiating a higher salary at the time you're getting a job offer. Because when you're starting a new job on day one, no one wants to hear that you want a different salary. You should have done that before you started. So let's back up a little bit and talk about negotiating a higher salary when receiving an offer that's a little low. Now, there are lots of different strategies, lots of different tactics that go into this. Most of these are tactical, but I would say the most important one I would suggest that you look at is a video I did that's on YouTube. It's also available at JobSearch.Community in one of my salary negotiation courses. It's the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary for yourself. I worked in recruiting, so I can be hard-nosed. I have a relationship with the client at the time I'm negotiating compensation. I don't do recruiting anymore. And, I help people negotiate it. And if you wanted to consult with me, again, you can book time for an individual half hour with me where I do salary negotiation coaching. But I would point you back to the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary for yourself on YouTube as being a great video. It's one of the first videos I ever did in 2008. That's how long I've been on the platform. And it will help you in many different ways. The most prominent way is I make it easy. It balances some of the power between you and them that gets tilted toward them during the course of your interview. And if you'll notice, I'm not giving you anything other than that for now because I don't know what's happened up until this point. And nor is it important that I know. I also don't know how tough a negotiator you're prepared to be, or whether you're unwilling to put yourself in a position where you could risk everything. So the long and the short of it is I'll push it back to the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary for yourself. I believe that's the title. It's either that or the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary. Look for it on YouTube. Or again, become an insider at JobSearch.Community, where you get everything from me. And you can ask me more questions through the site as well. So I'm sorry that it's not a specific answer, but I can't give you a specific answer. I don't know anything that's transpired up until this point. Don't know the kind of work that you do, whether we're talking about someone who's making $15 an hour or $500,000 an hour. 500,000 a year. So good luck. I hope you take me up on the video at a minimum and become an insider as well. I've got more questions, but before I go any further, I just want to remind you, JobSearch.Community has all my video courses, books, and guides. There's a lot there to help you. I've got free information there too. No commitment on your part to do anything other than download one of 6 courses or 6 of 6 pieces of information I have there, including one about developing a great elevator pitch. I used to hate elevator pitches, but then I learned a model that I think is, well, I'll simply say I like it because I don't feel like I have to take a shower after I say it. Also, there's one about diagnosing your job search problems that's available there. I sell this on Amazon as a short Kindle book, but it's available to you for free at JobSearch.Community. Go there, download it, or any of the other things that are there. I hope to have a chance to work with you directly. Okay. Now, I've received more. And this question is, there we go. If a person has 2 job interviews scheduled for the same day, should they go ahead with both interviews or cancel one of them? My belief is if you're an intelligent individual and you have ample time to prepare for both, you can do both the same way. When I did recruiting, it was pretty common for people to have 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 interviews on the same day. So for example, someone was being flown in by a firm and had a 9 o'clock, would run till noon. I'd have them on a 1 o'clock, then might go till 3. Then from there, a 4 o'clock, that would finish off their day. And sometimes another firm would take them out to dinner, and thus they would do not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 interviews in one day. And, I remember I was a relatively junior person, and I had actually 2 friends who were flown in by a client, did 4 interviews on Monday, and then another 3 on Tuesday, and wound up with 3 offers. You can do 2, but the key thing is about preparation. And thus, if you don't have time to prepare for both, cancel the one you're less interested in, reschedule at the same time, saying another commitment came up. I apologize, I'd like to reschedule for the next day. Can that work for you? What time are you available? Go right in for closing them on the rescheduling. But my thinking is, if you're a professional and have time to prepare for an interview, There's no problem with doing 2. Here's the caveat: as long as you have time to prepare, as long as you've got some rest time between the 2. So, for example, a 9 and a 1, or a 9 that lasts a half hour, an hour, and you do something at 11, 11:30, there should be no problem with that, unless it's a long trip to the next firm. If this is being done by video, it's no problem at all. You've got time to take a break between sessions and relax, watch a little TV, unwind, what have you. So the long and the short of it is you can do multiples on one day with those as caveats, okay? Okay, so here's a fun one. Bear with me while I copy that into chat. Does not showing up for interviews affect hiring process at other places? Wrong spelling on the word affect, but that's a different part of the conversation. It's not like one HR person is going to call up another one, like they would know where else you're interviewing, and say, do you know what Jeff did? Do you know what Sue did? They didn't come to my interview. They didn't show up. It's terrible. You shouldn't interview them. Like, who do they contact? They don't know where else you're interviewing. So more than anything, the question is the effect on you, not just simply now, but in the future, because people change jobs and they wind up in new places. And sometimes they remember your rudeness and will not even consider interviewing you because they remember that you stood them up and just didn't show up for an interview. So the long and the short of it is it won't affect you now, but it may have a very significant effect in the future. Okay. So again, if you've got a question about job search, put it into chat so I can answer it live. Let's go to the next question. What are some things to say to explain a job search gap on a resume or during an interview? Here's a fun possibility. Have you ever considered giving the truth? You can frame certain things like, I was part of a layoff at my firm that affected 350 different people. Generally, the people who were affected were folks like me, fairly senior, experienced, middle management professionals. And that wasn't just simply in my department, it was firm-wide. Or they generally laid off people who were fairly inexperienced, who didn't have much in the way of seniority with the firm. And thus, I was amongst those affected. It really depends on your circumstances as to how to bring it up. But the long and the short of it is, it's fine to explain why it is you were laid off truthfully, but just frame it in a way that makes it clear to people that you were not fired because you were incompetent. That's not why you were let go. Another example, of course, is, I was laid off at the beginning of COVID. It took 10 months to land something for obvious reasons. I'm sure you've seen any number of people who lost their jobs during COVID, and I was no exception. Firms were shut down. They weren't doing any hiring, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of truthful things that you can say that don't make you feel like you're lying. They don't make you feel like you're slimy in what you say. Try the truth sometimes. It can really work very well. Is it good when a company closes a job requisition just before sending you the interview invitation? The answer is a definite maybe, but there's no certainty to this. They will normally do that. That is, pull down a job description around the time they're sending you the interview invitation, not because they think you're the best person, but they've got enough resumes. They don't need to see any more. They've got 10 people scheduled. They'll narrow it down to 5 in this round. They'll narrow it down to 3 in the next round. they'll bring it down to 2 and then make a choice. So the long and the short of it is, it doesn't really mean anything. So it doesn't mean you're getting the job. It doesn't mean you're not getting the job. So is it good? Like I said, a definite maybe. And you still have a lot of selling to do before you're going to get hired or just simply rejected. Okay. I've got a few more questions. I spend about a half hour on this show. And the next question is, how would the interviewer rate a candidate who's visibly nervous during an interview but knows their stuff? The answer, start off with, how will they know that you know your stuff? See, when firms hire, I've always said competence is only one thing that they look for. Self-confidence, character, chemistry, maybe a little bit of charisma, that you care, that they can connect with you because they want to trust you. When you come across as being nervous or, quote, visibly nervous, close quotes, during an interview, they become insecure that you know your stuff. How will they find that out? If you're nervous and you answer questions in ways that don't inspire confidence that you're the solution to a need that they have. So just remember, how will they rate you? Poorly. That's the fact of it. And I know you know this because you wouldn't be contacting me with this question if you didn't already know this. So I'm sorry I can't give you a placebo saying, don't worry about it, everything will be fine, because that wouldn't be true. My work is involved with giving people no BS job search advice, and I won't lie to you. So the long and the short of it is, you're probably out. That's it in a nutshell. You've probably been rejected. You're probably out of consideration. That's the way it goes. Practice interviewing in advance. Hire me to help you practice. Become an Insider Plus member or an Insider 30 member or an Insider 60 member, so that in this way we can work together and I can help you directly with your interviewing. So again, your nervousness makes them nervous. When they are nervous, they are not going to choose you. That's the reality to it. Okay. So, Yard Bank is back. I see a lot of companies getting people back to the office. What's your opinion on work from home market for 2025? Smaller. That's the reality to it. In a tight labor market, with fewer jobs available and more people out of work, especially for college-educated professionals, it's a harder market because firms have choices and they like compliant, docile people, sheep. And thus, the market from work at home is less dominant than it was a few years ago, with good reason. So, from your vantage point, you can look for jobs where you can work from home. By all means, there are some out there. Remote. And Yard Bank answered, is it going to be 5 days a week like before? The answer is probably. So that's because firms believe they now have the power. And I'll let you in on a secret. They do. There's more people looking for work than jobs. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. And again, you worked in finance, they can make demands. They have expectations that you're going to work 90 hours a week because that's the demands of finance. Again, you know this. So once they're talking about return to office, the rules of the game have changed. They want to see someone's smiling face, sucking up to them Monday through Friday from 8 till 10, 8 a.m. till 10 p.m., just like it was in the old days. And the exception is going to be exactly that, the exception. So good luck with that. It's going to be complicated for a while. And I'll just simply say, I hope you found this answer helpful. Next week, as I said, I'm probably not going to be doing a show. My wife had open heart surgery at the beginning of COVID. I want to say June 2020. And she's having another issue. So the probability is she's going to have exploratory surgery next Tuesday to determine whether they need to go back and do more work. So I'll be skipping next week. I may see if I can do a show on a different day, but the probability is I won't. I'm there for my wife because she needs my support. So for today, I hope you found this helpful. I'm Jeff Altman. Visit my website, JobSearch.Community. Download the free stuff, become an insider, Insider Plus member, Insider 30 member, Insider 60, or Insider Premium member. There's a lot there to help you. And I'll also mention, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Thank you, Nicole. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I'm sure she will as well. Have a terrific day. And most importantly, be great. Take care.